Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, regardless of where you are. It's always a great time to have a conversation about Spiritism and especially Christianity enlightened by Spiritism. So today we're going to be reviewing chapter 36. We are reading chapter 36 of the book Our Daily Bread by Emmanuel, and which is titled um, at Till the End. Just confirm, yes, to the end. And it's based in Matthew chapter 24, verse 13. So before we begin, I'd like to thank Kardec Radio for the opportunity for us to be here and have studies just like this one here. Kardec Radio is in several platforms, including the X platform, which was formerly known as Twitter. Before we begin our conversation, let's close our eyes and connect ourselves to the spiritual world. And in this process of internal harmonization, let's remember all of those in need, and those who are in need of nourishment, both physical and for the soul, those who are in need for peace, both in their hearts and also outside of them as well, those in need of connection. May that connection be again to their inner selves, for them to look into themselves, connected to others, and that be incarnated or disincarnated, and especially connected with our God. May God bless all of us and guide us and inspire us always. So be it. So, again, today we're going to be covering chapter 36, which is titled To the End. And it is based on Matthew chapter 24, verse 13. And it goes like this: But he who stands firm to the end will be saved. It is quite interesting because it was based on a question from his disciples about what happens after death. And he explained that, hey, he who stands firm to the end will be saved. And Emmanuel explains here that here we do not see Jesus referring to an end, which could symbolize termination, but rather as a finality, an aim, an objective. So it's kind of interesting when we see here because it is not end. It's not the end of everything. It's not the end of our mission. It's not the end of our journey. It's an end, but a lot more like termination, not so much as termination, but rather as a finality, a name, an objective. So something that we're striving to. So here we see already Emmanuel emphasizing the need for us to stay firm on our objectives um, as Christians, who we are, as we need to follow the teachings of Jesus, and of course, as Spiritists, because as Spiritists, we understand the need for our intellectual and moral progress. So we see here the need for us to stay firm on our objectives. So as it is a lot more focusing, not so much focusing on an end of our journey, on an end of our evolutionary path, because even as we reach the end of our evolutionary path, that's not the end. It's not like game over for us. It's more like level unlocked. Allow me to use some gamer kind of wording here, kind of gamer jargon, but it's not game over like um, like when a video game is over, and it's more like now that I've reached that level, now I'm going to be able to unlock all the other chapters of whatever game that I'm playing. So it's kind of like similar to that. As we reach the end of as we reached our goal, our aim, our finality, our objective, then that's when we reach this objective, and then kind of like similar to a video game. And I allow me this to use this very loose analogy here. As we reach that level, then now we're going to be have so many other opportunities unlocked for us. However, for us to reach all the way to the end, it's important for us to stay true to our values as spiritists and as Christians. Emmanuel indicates here that the gospel shall be preached to the people so that each one can understand and achieve the superior goals of life. So here we see that Emmanuel is explaining to us that the gospel uh, translate as empowerment to the people. And interesting enough, he's not saying, "Hey, now it's going to be preached to the people," and but then he emphasizes, "Okay, it's being taught for everyone, but each one can understand." So again, each one, even though the message is broadcast to everyone, each it is up to each individual to internalize the message and use that message to achieve the superior goals of life, to reach the highest goals of life. And life here, spiritual life, which is our true life. Menu continues here indicating that it is for this reason that only those incarnates that know how to persevere are able to break the bud of animalistic conditions. We all have a starting point. And again, it is very interesting that even though this message is entitled to the end, and Jesus does refer to an end, but again, it is a journey. It is a journey that starts with us in the primitive stage in which we're still so captivated, we're still captive of our animalistic conditions, our instinctive reactions. So those reincarnates, so those of us who are experiencing life here in the material realm, it is in, they, we need to know how to persevere. We need to know how to use these higher ideals, this higher understanding to break away from our animalistic, from our primitive tendencies, because as those are holding us back, those definitely hold us back from progressing. Just think about some of the, when we think about animals, what it brings to mind is rage and fear. So whenever we are enraged, that brings out the animal in us, and how many times when we rage we can make do wrong things, hurt others, and hurt ourselves, and not so much hurting physically, it could happen, but especially hurting somebody else emotionally, and create a hindrance for ourselves. The same way with fear as well, as if we are afraid of acting, afraid of doing what's right, and being so afraid of the world, we're going to forfeit so many opportunities to do good. So that's why we have to keep moving and to persevere and to stay true to our ideals. Emmanuel continues here indicating that when the master applauded persistence, he was demonstrating the arduous tasks of those striving to achieve the excellence of the spiritual path. So again, the master, in this case Jesus, was applauding, so he was indicating the importance, he was highlighting the importance of persistence, and in the process he was showing to us that there are arduous tasks that we need to follow, and it is not easy, and that's why he uses the term persistence for that aim. Quite interesting that Kardec had mentioned that before. So Kardec mentioned to us the need for us to spiritualize ourselves, the need for us to educate ourselves, and also the need for us to humanize ourselves as well. So as we spiritualize ourselves, we learned about the spiritual world. We are actually reminded, right, of the spiritual world, and that this is not the true life. So we understand that life actually is not here. Our true life is in the spiritual realm. And then when we humanize ourselves, when we educate ourselves, that's when we learn from the spiritual teachings, the from the gospel. And so those teachings, they allow us to become better. So they qualify us. And as we qualify ourselves, then that's the time for us to humanize ourselves, to break away from those primitive tendencies that we have, and start to and be able to move on in our spiritual path to excellence. We are all destined for excellence in the spiritual standpoint. But it requires, like Emmanuel reminds us here, requires arduous tasks for those to get there. And along those same lines, Emmanuel reminds us that it is essential to eliminate any false notions of gratuitous favors from the divinity. So it's a reminder for us that it's nothing's going to be given to us. In a sense, favors are not going to be given to us. Of course, we're going to have opportunities, and we in those opportunities, we're going to have different experiences, and some of those experiences they provide some different tools for us. But there's no gratuitous favors, so meaning that none of us are going to skip any levels, because again, that would go against the laws of the universe and against the laws of God. It is up to us to work hard, to progress, to learn, and to overcome our rage, our fears, this primitive version of ourselves, and strive to reach the spiritual, to reach the divine version of ourselves. And again, which happens when we reach divine worlds, when we become pure spirits. And Emmanuel continues explaining to us here that no one will be able to flee with impunity from the respective effort required of him for his task toward personal perfection. So, again, if we try to move away from this path of righteousness, if we try to deviate from our journey to reach purity as spirits, then we're going to have consequences. So there is no impunity. We are always gonna have consequences. So a lot of times we see life as we see things that happen to us as punishments. But there's no punishment in the universe. There's a law of cause and effect. So for every action, there's a reaction for us. So if we try to deviate from the path of good, then it's going to impact us negatively. And again, action and reaction. Why is it going to impact us negatively? Because now, as we try to deviate, then the universe is going to take us action for us to go back to our mission as immortal souls. And in the process, I mean, that process, things, the process is going to take place, and most likely it's not going to be pleasant. Most likely it's going to be a painful way for us to make sure that we get back to our path, to get back to our aim. So Emmanuel uses a figurative speech here when he says that the doors of heaven remain open. So he uses a figurative language here. The doors of heaven have remained wide open. They have never been closed. Nonetheless, in order for the individual to elevate to such heights, he requires wings of love and wisdom. Very interesting here. So again, when what we've Emmanuel refers here for us is that our objective of reaching perfection, it is always going to be there. It's never been has never have never been close. So it means nobody's going to eliminate that. That will always be our destiny. However, for us to elevate to such heights, for us to get to that level, then you need wings, another figurative speech of love and wisdom. So basically, what Emmanuel is explaining to us here is that we have to elevate ourselves using wings. Again, analogy of a bird or an angel or any kind of flying being. Of course, figurative speeches, even referring to angels as flying, because angels are also higher order spirits. But at any rate, so we need the wings of love and wisdom. So the same ways that wings allow a bird to fly and to fly upwards, then the wings of love, so meaning the wings of love, meaning our moral development, the effort we put in to become more better individuals, better spirits. And of course, wisdom, our need, our work also to educate ourselves. The menu continues here, indicating that for this purpose, the Supreme Being confers extensive copies of merciful material to all his children, but he also confers to each one the obligation of carving them. So another analogy here, there is material for us. So there is opportunities for us. So but it's up to us to work on those. Again, the opportunities will come. And a lot of times we just think as opportunities as pleasant and we always have the idea of an opportunity of something that's going to make our lives easier. But our opportunities, they'll come in different ways. Of course, they are going to be pleasant facts in our lives, but also the trials as well, the challenges. Those are opportunities. That's material for us. So, just as an example, if we are in a relationship with a spouse, for instance, just as sake of argument, with a spouse that is a difficult individual, so of course it's a challenge, but also it is God giving us material for us to work with that. There is something for us to build for that. There is some good that you can do for that person and for yourself as well, with all the learnings, all the experiences that you're going to, and all the improvement in yourself that you're going to gain after a an experience, even though it might be a difficult experience. So again, both the good experiences and the challenging experiences, they all help us build. That is like God, they giving us the material that we can use to build a better version of ourselves. So it's up to us to carve. Nobody's gonna carve it for us. Nobody's gonna create. Nobody's gonna build anything for us. It's gonna be up to us to build something out of all the opportunities that the universe gives to us. And Emmanuel continues here. Such a task, however, requires tremendous effort. Obviously, if we are given opportunities, we have to make the best of those opportunities. It requires effort. It requires us to exerting ourselves, and of course, whenever we talk about effort, we all relate to physical and to expend energy. But a lot of there's a lot of effort that goes also into being patient, into being tolerant, into being respectful, into forgiving, and to be merciful. So all those things, they require effort as well. So even though we do not recognize those, might not recognize those as labor, but they are labor intensive. A manner finalized here indicating that in order to finalize the goal, the contribution of days and lifetimes are recruited. Many persons become disenchanted, preferring to remain stationary for centuries in the labyrinth of inferiority. However, the good workers know how to persevere until finally achieving the divine objectives of the terrestrial path, continuing the sublime trajectory towards perfection. So again, in here in the end, Emmanuel reminds us that it takes time, and we gotta give ourselves time, and it's gonna take lifetimes and centuries that are going to be required. None of us can reach perfection overnight, and a lot of us feel disenchanted, like Emmanuel indicates here, when we see and frustrated because we see that whatever sometimes, a lot of times we have the impression that our efforts are fruitless, when in fact whatever effort we put into moving forward is always going to move us forward, even if it's an inch. It's still going to move us forward. So um, um, a journey of 1,000 miles start with the first step. So every single step that we do contributes for us to reaching our goal of perfection. So again, it's kind of hard for us, and it's very disenchanting and very frustrating. But again, it takes time. So we have to be patient with ourselves in that journey. And there's a tendency for us to just give up. So it's there's a risk for us to just give up and get frustrated and think that, oh my gosh, what I'm gonna do now? Why is it that apparently the universe is conspiring against me, even though I try to do everything so right? But again, it takes time, and a lot of times people do not understand. us do not understand the effort we're putting. But again, that's part of the journey as well. Nobody's going to understand our journey the same way that it's hard for us to understand somebody else's journey, because each journey is individual. But we have to give ourselves some credit and hey, figuratively speaking, tap ourselves in the back every time we do something that is right, or at least we take this closer, because every time we do something right, every time we act in the correct manner, every time we forgive, every time we're merciful, every time we're charitable, so every time we're patient and tolerant. So because those are like very small inches that we take, and they take us closer to our journey, to perfection. So again, so there's this need for us to persevere. So perseverance is the key here, for us to persevere in trying, at least trying to do what's right, despite all challenges, despite all the hindrances that we might find along the way. That is part of the journey. That's part of the hard work. But again, it's important for us to stay true to our values, to what we've been learning for centuries, because this is not just our first life here. What we've been learning for centuries, from good news that came from Jesus, to Jesus to us, and also from so many other emissaries as well, that help us to become better spirits, and one day reach our the reach perfection. So this is our conversation for today. I hope you liked it. Do not forget to subscribe to the Kardec Radio channel, and to click the little bell button to receive further notices. I'd like again to thank Kardec Radio for opening up so many platforms to all of us, so we can continue learning together. At this time, I'd like to say the final prayer, so I invite everyone to close their eyes and to connect with their spiritual benefactors, their spiritual friends, with his spiritual guide, also known as the guardian angel, all of those who are cheering for us, supporting us in our journey. Connect with Jesus, connect with God, and to thank for life, thank for this opportunity here on earth that we have, and so many other opportunities that we're gonna have to continue moving forward, despite our shortcomings, despite the, the apparent setbacks. It's important for us to stay true to what we have learned, to put into practice the teachings of Jesus, so that for the benefits of others and for our betterment as well. May God's love be with us always. So be it. Thank you.